so much for inviting me. And I asked, she asked me to come to this lunch about a month ago. I said, well, how many people usually come? She said 50 or 60, and there's 100 people here. So this is fantastic. By the way, I'm seeing that everywhere I go. Our site is so pumped up, aren't we? We are so pumped up. I look and see everybody here, and my first reaction is, who knew there were so many deplorable people here in Maryland? Raise your hand if you're a deplorable. But you're adorable deplorables. I've gotten in some trouble for saying some impolitic things in my lifetime, and I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I don't care what the left says. Republican women are smarter, nicer, and more beautiful than Democratic for one reason, and that is this. Can we all make a commitment this afternoon that in November of 2020, we are going to turn Maryland red?
Yeah!
I mean, imagine what it should be like on MSNBC and CNN and all these fake news networks when they have to announce Maryland has gone for Donald J. Trump. Now I see some of you look a little skeptical because you've been jaundiced, you've been here too long, but I do think, by the way, I'm just kind of hoping and praying that's Bernie Sanders. Wouldn't you love to run against Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders from Canada, we win 40 states. So this is going to be me. I saw the president, when I mentioned I saw him a couple weeks ago, I said to him, Mr. President, these policies you've put in place have worked even better than we thought they would. I mean, I knew Trump was going to rebuild the economy, but did anybody ever I've never conceived of the idea that we would see an economy this strong. So I want to kind of walk you through just with a few charts. You noticed how the Democrats keep changing their line. So I worked in 2016 on the campaign, and I was debating all these liberal economists. Like, anybody know who Paul Krugman is? He's kind of the left-wing economist for the New York Times. He has a Nobel Prize in economics, and I used to debate him and Larry Summers, who was the Treasury Secretary under Obama, and seemingly the entire Harvard economics faculty and Yale and Princeton. They all hated Trump. And do you remember what they said during the 2016 campaign? Congressman, it is good to see you. You are one of my heroes. I'm so glad that you were here. Fantastic. But you remember, right? They said, if Donald Trump is elected president, he's going to cause a second Great Depression. Remember? He's going to destroy the earth. He's going to destroy the world economy. He's going to cause a stock market crash like we've never seen before. And so all of this stuff was going, all of these quotes. And by the way, Paul Krugman, who actually, is probably the most influential economist on the left, I'll never forget this, on 8 a.m., the day after the election, the morning after, when the liberals were not in a very good mood, he was asked on MSNBC, he was asked, when will the stock market recover from this Trump election? Paul Krugman said, you can look it up. He said, never. The stock market will never recover. By the way, the market opened an hour after he uttered those words to 700 points. And it hasn't stopped happening. So the same people who said, Trump's going to cause a second Great Depression, now here we are a little over 3 years later with arguably the best economy in 20, 30, 40 years, depending on what statistics you look at. So have you noticed what they're saying now? It's just a continuation of the Obama. This is just the Obama effect. You've heard them say that. This is just the Obama effect. That's the reason the economy's doing so well. And so the woman, Erin Burnett, who's the host of the CNN show, she said, well, Steve, do you think that this strong economy is just the Obama effect? And I said, Erin, absolutely, this is the Obama effect. It is the effect that Barack Obama is no longer president of the United States. Here is some statistical proof of that. Look at the top one, which is really one of my favorite charts. This is small business optimism. By the way, how many of you in this room own or operate a small business in this room? Thank you. I'm saluting you. You are You are the spinal cord of the American economy. We have 27 million small businessmen and women in this country, and without you, our economy would not function. And so when you look at small business confidence, this is, in my opinion, one of the great lead indicators of where the economy is headed. If small businessmen and women are confident that and they're going to expand their businesses, that's a really good sign. Now, do you see the top chart there? That is the index of small business confidence. And do you see where that red line just goes straight up?
Yeah.
That was the poll that was taken 72 hours after Donald Trump was elected.
Wow.
And the question was just asked about 3 weeks ago by the Gallup poll. And it's not 36% of Americans who rate the economy as good as rate today. It's 74% of Americans rate the economy. I love to show him these charts, and this is one he loved this chart. And this is blue collar. What's happened with blue collar jobs in America in the years of Obama versus Trump. And look at the U-turn. You can see the U-turn effect there. Look what happened with mining and construction and manufacturing. It was either flat or it fell dramatically under Obama. And then you can see almost overnight from when Trump was elected, we have created almost 1.6 million manufacturing, construction, and mining jobs since Donald J. Trump was elected. 1.6 million. And by the way, and one of the things that annoys me the most about liberals is they make two allegations against Donald Trump, which I find really offensive. The most offensive thing they say about Donald J. Trump is that he is a racist. And it is an outrageous claim. I've been around this man, for a lot in the last 4 years, and he treats people, whether they're blacks or Hispanics or Asians or whatever, this idea that he is a racist is ridiculous. And by the way, under Donald J. Trump, today we have the lowest black and Hispanic unemployment rate in 50 years. How is that of a racist? So he cares a lot. And then the other claim they make is he just cares about rich people. Which is ridiculous. This really is the blue-collar president. Every meeting I was in with him when we talked about the economy, it was always the same. It was always the same. He'd say to Larry Kudlow and I and Mark Laffer, he'd say, how will these policies affect middle-class workers? These were the people who showed up at his rallies. You mentioned, Ellen, the rallies. I went to a number of them, and these were not typical Republicans, right? They're certainly not country club Republicans. These were, bus drivers and school teachers and construction workers, and there were all motorcycle riders and a lot of blacks and Hispanics who really believed in Donald Trump's message about making America great again. So was elected, became president in January of 2017 through December of 2019. Median household income is up almost $5,000. $5,000. That's 5 times faster in 2. Remember he said that? I'm going to repeal 2 regulations for every new regulation he got. For every new regulation, Donald Trump has repealed 22 regulations. An agenda is dismantling government as we know it. Well, hell yes, he is. That's why we elected him. That's why we elected him. How stupid are these people? We elected him to dismantle government as we know it. And remember what his closing argument was, right? You remember, what were the 3 words? Drain the swamp. I wish you were in the audiences because this is John F. Kennedy. He said this 50 years ago. I'm sure you've seen this one many times. It is a paradoxical truth that tax rates are too high and revenues are too low. And the soundest way to raise the revenues in the long run is to cut the rates down. Isn't that beautiful? By the way, I have to say this. If John F. Kennedy were alive today, he would be a Republican. He believed in loan. Because if you want to understand Donald J. Trump, you have to read the book, right? What is his book? The Art of the Deal. This guy is the most unbelievably great negotiator I have ever seen. And I was thinking, if he had taken our advice, it started with 20. I think he wanted 20% all along. I really do. I think he just knew if you want 20, you start at 15. And if he had started at 20, Ellen, we probably would have ended up at 25 or 26%. So thank God Donald Trump did not take my advice or not Doctor's advice. And we did get this in. And so what's happening as a consequence, we're just sucking capital in from the rest of the world. America. production of American oil and gas, and the red line is our imports, and you can see what has happened. I mean, this is one of the most phenomenal things that has happened in the American economy in the last 15 years. We have gone from a country that was importing $200 billion a year of oil and gas from OPEC and Russia and all these other hostile nations, to now, for the first time in your and my lifetime, we are a net exporter of oil and gas. Thank you, Donald Trump. Actually, what you're looking at is Ohio, Pennsylvania, and then way up at the top is upstate New York. And you see all those red and green, dots. Those are all the wells that have been drilled, and it's rebuilt the Ohio, Pennsylvania economy. That's called the Marcellus Shale and the Utica Shale. And there's more natural gas in that area than anywhere else in the rest of the world. And so you can see, and you see at the very top how all of those wells are right at the Pennsylvania-New York border. You see that? And this is so amazing. So New York, which is kind of like Maryland in some ways in terms of their dingbat politicians. And so New York has decided, we're not going to allow any drilling in New York. No, I know we could create all these jobs, but we're not going to do it, blah, blah, blah. And so, one of the things that's really made America a dynamo in energy is we have something called horizontal drilling now, where these wells go 2 miles deep in the ground, and now they can go like a spider web in any direction, which has completely revolutionized our drilling capacity. And so what they are doing in Pennsylvania, this is such a great thing. So this is free market capitalism. So what they're doing in Pennsylvania is they're drilling down and going 2 miles underneath New York, and they're taking out all the natural Pennsylvania. So I love that. But this is a really interesting thing. Okay, so people say, well, we can't do this, right? We shouldn't be drilling for our oil and gas because it pollutes. It causes pollution, it causes greenhouse gases, and so on. And that's nonsense. What you're looking at here is, and by the way, Trump said this about a month ago, and I read all of these newspaper articles on how Donald Trump is lying about air quality. He is not lying. We have the highest level of air quality, the safest air any time in the last 100 years in this country. And it's actually been a trend. You can see that trend has been going on for 40 years. And what it shows is you can produce a lot of goods and services and oil and gas and so on and still clean up the environment. And that's what we've been doing. And look at that. I mean, these are 60, 70, 80, 90% reductions in air pollution and emissions. And that's an incredibly wonderful thing. I mean, because we're conservatives and free market people, but we care about, obviously, the environment. We want safe water and safe air, and we've got it. And then people say, well, this is such a terrible thing because we have to worry about climate change. And look, I mean, everybody has a different opinion about climate change. I know one of your great colleagues, AOC, says, well, we've got 9 years left before the world comes to an end. But look, even if you're someone, who thinks this really is I'm worried about it, but I don't think it's the greatest crisis that ever happened on the planet. Even if you do, here's the thing. How many are with me on this, by the way? One of the single greatest thing Donald Trump has done is pull America out of the anti-America Paris Climate Accord. It's a horrible disaster. Thank you, Donald Trump. He was the only one for the last 25 years. We have treated under the Bushes and the Obamas and the Clintons. We have treated China as if they're some kind of friend, an ally. China is not a friend and an ally. They are an adversary and they are an enemy, right? How do you agree? China is stealing from us. They are involved in predatory trade practices. They are building up their military in a very, very aggressive and dangerous way. Thank God we have a president like Donald J. Trump who finally called them out on this, right? And I think it's one of the best, and I think it's, what did Donald Trump say the first time he came down the escalator in Trump Tower? Remember, we are going to, control China. And that's, I think, one of the major reasons he won. Trump is taking some very aggressive steps, and that's why this trade deal, you're right, we're exporting all our jobs. They are basically, I'll give you one example. They also steal from us. They're stealing $300 billion a year. And Trump finally said that's not going to continue. We're going to, what he used to say to me is, if we can't trade with China, we sneeze. If they can't trade with us, they catch pneumonia. And maybe that's not a good go on TV week after week and say we're going to get to 3 to 4% growth under Trump. Now, that was the one prediction we made that was wrong. Under Trump, the economy is growing at about 2.5%. By the way, that's still a lot better than 1.9% under Obama. And then you ask the question, why is it that we aren't growing faster? And I think that the biggest challenge right now, sir, and it's a great question you asked, is when I go around the country, I go from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine, and I always meet, when I meet businessmen and women, I always ask them, how's business? And invariably they say it's good or great. I mean, there's sometimes, very rarely they see good business is not good. Business is really good for most companies right now. But then I always say, what is your single biggest challenge right now? And what do you think they say? Finding workers. Finding workers. There are not enough workers in the United States that are skilled and capable of doing these jobs. That's why I mentioned it's so important. China is just so clamping down on their people. There's no human rights in China. There's no right to the things that we take for granted. It's such a great point to end on. I get so despondent about these young kids who think like Bernie Sanders is like the it candidate. Like, I always tell them, freedom and liberty are such precious commodities. They're precious commodities. We are the only country in the world that has this. And millions of Americans have died, given up their life, their fortunes, their good name, everything to protect these liberties. And I tell these young people, you're just going to hand you're going to hand the healthcare system over to the government? That's right. I mean, can you think of anything dumber than that? To hand our healthcare system over to the government? You're going to hand, we're going to have all these free things. We need to have a reappreciation for the greatness of our country and the greatness of freedom and liberty. That's why I'm here today. That's why you're here. That's why we have to win this election.
Actually, we've been given a little more time, and you all look like you're mesmerized. Do you want us to stay or go? Martha?
I think I want to end on that point. This is all about liberty, it's about freedom, and about getting Donald J. Trump reelected. And again, Hillary Clinton lost because she was overconfident, right? They didn't go to Ohio, they didn't go to Wisconsin. We have to make a plea that imagine what happens if we win Maryland. We can do this. We can win Maryland.
Yes.
And we have to work on it. I'm so sick of the days we can't win Maryland. When I got involved with Donald J. Trump in January of 2016, you know what his odds of winning the presidency were, according to the experts? 1 in 100. They said he had 1 in 100 chance of winning. And he did win. So when people say, oh, Trump can't win Maryland, nonsense, he can't. And we just have to keep working day after day after day. And that is going to send a thunderous message. And by the way, if Trump wins at the top of the ticket, think of what we're going to do to the Democrats down. We're going to wipe them out. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.